Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, today we're back to work over here on some of these cane mills, and I need to get some Babbitt poured. So in previous episode, we worked on getting some mandrels made and some little rings to go on our mandrel for positioning and damming up the Babbitt. And I think we're ready. I've got a bunch of bearings that I'm just going to go ahead and try to get all knocked out today. I think I'm going to start over here on this little John Deere Hercules mill, getting the main bearings poured in here. Again, I've got my shaft, my pouring mandrel, as well as the positioning rings ready to go. So let's get in here. We're kind of pick up where we left off making all that stuff. We're going to do the actual Babbitt pour today, get everything set up for that. So let's get her done. So for this particular pour, I opted to make a pouring mandrel to pour against rather than pouring it directly against the shaft that goes in here. And the main reason is because the shaft that goes in here, it's got a big drum in the middle, it's got a gear on this end, it's got a gear on this end, and all of them kind of butt right up next to this. And there's just not any room for me to get anything in there to dam these ends up so the Babbitt doesn't just pour out. So with this setup, I don't have all that stuff in my way. I just turned these diameters here to the same diameter, actually just a couple of thousandths larger diameter than the shaft is going to be running in there. And we got the rings on here that will fit down into the position, get the shaft position where it's not rubbing up directly against it. And these will also kind of serve as a dam, although I will have to reinforce this with some damming material to make sure that we don't leak any Babbitt while we're pouring these. So these are pretty much ready to go. We just need to get everything prepped up and ready for the actual Babbitt pour, get some heat in there, preheat in there to do it. So I'm going to start by getting these shells cleaned up really well. We're going to be pouring the Babbitt. So I'm going to take the arbor out of there right now, the mandrel out. And I'm going to go get a wire wheel. And I just want to clean this up really well, make sure that we got all the trash and everything out of there, and we'll be ready to come in here and actually do our pour. So this is the bearing shell that will actually hold the Babbitt in there. This one has some little rings in there, and our fixturing rings will actually give us a little bit of clearance above and beyond that, where the Babbitt's not, or the shaft isn't running into that little piece of cast iron. Now, on Babbitt bearing shells, I like to see some little, something for that Babbitt to kind of grip a hold of in here. These do have some lips up on the top, so that should prevent that from rotating. But on most of them, I see some little holes drilled in here. Not through holes, but just some little dimples in there. And what happens is when that Babbitt is cast in here, it goes into those holes, and that again prevents that Babbitt from twisting in the shell and staying in position. So I'm going to just take a drill here. I'm not going to drill through, but I do want to put a couple of dimples in here, and then we'll get this cleaned up. So I'm just going to do it kind of right there where there's some good material up underneath it. And that's all we need, is just a little bit of something for it to grip a hold of. All right, again, that just gives that Babbitt shell a little something more to grip to hold in there and make sure it doesn't spin around. I get the other one done as well, other side. I'll tell you what, I'm gonna put another one. There's a little thick cross section right there. There we go. I'm gonna do the same thing to the other side. So now I'm just gonna come in here with a wire wheel, and I'm just gonna clean these up as good as I can, get as much of that trash out of there as I can. Much better. I'm going to bring my arbor back over. Mandrel, whatever you want to call it here. And I will note that the size of these journals are different on each end. And I do have it marked as to which side goes where. So I know that I'm getting it in here correctly. All right, I got everything kind of fixtured over here like I want it, but we need to put some damming material on here to make sure this Babbitt doesn't come out. I know I got these spacers, but there's still plenty of room in there for stuff to squeeze out. So I'm using this Deacon mold pack right here. This is made for this kind of stuff, for doing hot work, damming material, whatever. And I'm just going to put a fair amount of this around these ends. This is just some added reinforcement here, make sure we don't get a leak. If we get any kind of hole for that Babbitt to escape from, it will just pour right out, because it's going to be liquid molten metal when we put it in there. So I want to make sure we don't lose any. We want to keep it all in the mold. So we'll just seal it up with this. And I will also note, guys, that I did cheat a little bit on these fixturing rings. I got the little lip turned in there that sits on there, and it wasn't sitting exactly straight from one end to the other, so I got them just sitting on the two outside ones. The inside rings, I turned around backwards where I just have that flat going up against it, so it is just working as a dam. These outside ones are positioning it. The inside ones are just a dam, holding it all together. And I tend to go overboard with this stuff. When it gets hot, it kind of wants to lose its grip, so if I put plenty in there, it tends to stay put pretty good. So I'm going to get this done on the ends all the way around, and then we'll start putting some preheat in here to get ready for the Babbitt pour. I think that side's good. So now we want to preheat everything. When pouring Babbitt, I like to have my metal that I'm pouring up, just a couple hundred degrees. It doesn't have to be super, super hot, but that helps a lot. It makes, when you pour the Babbitt in there, it doesn't freeze as fast. It doesn't cool down and solidify. And you can see the problem you got when you put a little heat on these rings. That damming material wants to fall off. We'll put that back on in a little bit. We'll get this preheated up a couple hundred degrees. Make sure our dams are good and strong, and we'll be ready to pour these bearings. All right, let's give it a try. Bring the ladle back over. There we go. That little spill there was just running over the top. And there we go. We will let this cool down and clean those up, do a little scraping, but I think we got it. So while that first one is cooling down, I'm going to go ahead and get ready for my next pour, which is going to be for these smaller Goldens #2 cane mills. And I'm just getting some fresh Babbitt here ready to start melting. I will note that because these are cane mills, it's making a food grade product, I am using a tin-based Babbitt. This is a food grade Babbitt. Now, Babbitt comes in different flavors. A lot of your Babbitts, a lot of your cheaper Babbitts are lead-based. And from a bearing standpoint, there's nothing really wrong with that. The tin-based stuff tends to work better on high-speed shafts when you're running several thousand RPMs or something. But if you're just running a couple hundred RPMs, or even up to 800 or 900 RPMs, the lead-based Babbitt holds up fine. But because this is making a food grade product, we don't want to be have any opportunity to introduce lead into the system. So I am using a tin-based Babbitt that has no lead in it. It is an alloy. I don't remember exactly everything that's in it, but its primary ingredient in this stuff is tin, which is food safe. So I'm just kind of getting this preheated and melted down a little bit, and then it's on the camp stove. We'll just let it warm up, and I forgot to turn my stove on. Now it's burning. All right, I'll just let it sit here and simmer on the stove, and let me show you the bearing that we're going to pour. So this is for one of the Goldens #2 cane mills, and I'd made this pouring mandrel, as well as these positioning rings previously as well. This one here, we're just going to set it up. This is for one of the rollers on one of those smaller cane mills, and it's ready to pour. I've already got it all dammed up. The nice thing here is we're sitting, the gravity's not working against us on the dam, so this should hold up pretty good. I'm not as worried about it. Let me get some heat going on this. Once again, we do want to put a little preheat in here. Get all this up to a couple hundred degrees so it doesn't freeze up too quick when we pour it. The positioning rings are positioning it where it needs to be. We'll warm that up and we'll be ready to pour. All right, I think we're ready to pour. Excess, I'll just put right back in the Babbitt pot. I'm going to let this cool here for just a few minutes. I'll go ahead and pull that out though. It's pretty well done. Set up here. There we go. One nice bearing shell. We'll let that cool down, and I'll get the other one set up here for this one here, and we'll go ahead and get it poured while we're at it. And I got my next bearing here ready to go. This is the top bearing that matches that bottom one that we just poured. Same diameter, although I had to use a different bushing on this one, or positioning ring on one side. But again, we'll just put a little preheat in here. We'll be ready to pour. Here we go. And just remelt this stuff that overflowed. There we go. So I got a couple of these bearings here that we need to get poured. So I've got this one set up over here, same type thing. We just got the mandrel with the positioning rings in place. We got some damming material around it, and we need to get some heat on that mandrel and shell to get it ready to go. So while that other mandrel's cooling down, this one has had plenty of time to cool, so I'm going to go ahead and see if I can kind of knock it on out of there. Taking a lead hammer here. All right. Looks like we're loose on either end. Oh yeah. Nice pour. So up next, I need to pour the Babbitt in these cups, and these are a little bit different. These are upright, and there's just a half shell on one half of this that gets poured. The back side is left open. So what I do is I take some of my damming material and I just kind of roll it out on the table into something flat like this. And let's see, how big, tall of a piece do we need to go in there to wrap around this? About 3 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in here and make a square edge on this. I'm going to come up 3 inches, which is about right there. Make another square edge. Give us a square edge on the edge over here. And need to figure out how long it needs to be. So it's going to wrap around the inside of this. So it looks like it needs to cut off about right in here. All right. So I'm going to drop this down inside the shell here. Kind of push it up against the back wall. This casting that I'm going into kind of has a larger side and a smaller side. We want the larger side to be the side that we pour the bearing to. So we got room for the shell to fit in there. And I'm just kind of making it all kind of fit here. See that little screw. Just kind of pushing some of that damming material back up in there a little bit. And what I want again is just this front half to have a liner around it, and I don't want any going back there behind it. So I think we're about ready here. I'm going to put some heat into this, and we'll just pour some Babbitt right there and then that front edge. All right, putting some heat in here. Here we go. Let that cool down. There we go. That one is done. And we just got a little half shell there. That's what we need. All right, I need to start working on getting these bearings cleaned up a little bit. First thing I want to do is I want to knock the Babbitt off the top. It just kind of over poured a little bit. I've just got a real coarse file here for doing Babbitt. This Babbitt is soft, cuts very fast. I'm using an aggressive file, and we'll just kind of knock that right out of there. I just want to get it down flush to the metal. And that's pretty good right there. Maybe a little bit more in the back here. And then we'll get this side. All right. Now, I'm going to take a Babbitt scraping tool here, and we're going to start working on just kind of cleaning up this surface in here a little bit. We got a pretty nice finish on these bearings already, but a little scraping seems to help. And up here on the top, I'm just going to kind of just put a little bevel on those. Again, this Babbitt material is very soft. It cuts relatively easily. But that's kind of the process I'm going to do. I'm going to do the same thing to the other side, and we'll take the shaft and test fit it here in just a minute. So let me get the other side cleaned up, do the same thing, and we'll try it out. So I've got the shaft here with the gears and the drum on my jib crane. And we're going to bring it in here and drop it down on those bearings and see how things fit. Of course, there's not any oil or anything on these right now. I'm just making sure they spin easy, and yeah, that looks good. I don't have the top bearing caps on either, but I just wanted to make sure everything was going to fit like it needed to. It does. And I'm looking at my bull gear over here with a notch that I'd put in there for clearance. Let me show you that. That worked out just right. So again, we had to kind of notch out our timbers here for clearance for this gear to clear. That all worked out good. So I was a little bit concerned about that just because I couldn't put the gear up there to check it earlier. I was just going off some measurements, but yeah, we got plenty of clearance there. That's the main thing I needed, and that's going to work out perfect. All right. So with these bearings to this point, I think the next thing I need to do is take all this back apart, and we need to get the final paint on this. I'm going to paint it in pieces, and then we'll put it all back together and touch up any paint that we need to. But that does need to be painted, and then we can probably start soon working on getting this thing reassembled. I know I've got at least a couple of bearings that still need to be done on some of the other parts on this mill, and I just wasn't quite ready for that, but we'll get that done, and like I said, get some paint on some parts, and we can start getting this mill put back together here shortly. There's still work to be done, but we'll do it as we start putting it back together. All right, let's go back over to our other bearings and see what we need to do with those. And I went ahead, did it off camera, but got all these dressed up and cleaned up. Basically, all I did was I took and just put my belt sander and sanded the tops of these where I had a little bit of Babbitt kind of spilling over flush with the cast iron, and then just kind of knocked off that corner so that there wasn't any edge on it. These should be ready to go, so I haven't even tried them on yet to see how they fit. But for example, this bearing will fit on the bottom there. This one will go on the top, and that feels pretty darn good. Let's see here. And I got all these fitted up here. I will note that some of these bearings caps were powder coated. Before I did the bearings, we just powder coated the outside. I was concerned that when we heated these up that it would melt it, but it turned out all right. These worked out just fine. So I got a little bit of black along the top of that one, but it's in the bottom of the mill, so you won't even see it. These here get painted. This goes in a separate mill. Again, these are two different mills. I've got another big drum that matches these, but it's not up here on the counter, and I don't want to have to go lift it up here just to put them on there. I got it someplace else in the shop. In fact, I'm going to have to find it. It's out here somewhere. But the bearings are all done. We are now ready, I think, to put these mills together. I've got to get some hardware round up. I'm going to have to make a few pieces of hardware before we can do that, but that's coming up next on this. But we got our Babbitt poured, at least for the Golden's mills. It's done. The John Deere mill, I think there's a little bit more Babbitt pouring to do, but we're close to having all those done as well, because most of the bearings on that mill didn't need to have new Babbitt poured, so we're good to go. Well, guys, just like that, that's going to be a wrap on this video. Always fun to do a little bit of Babbitt pouring, and I got a bunch of them knocked out here. Like I said a minute ago, we got just a few more bearings we're going to have to pour over on this John Deere mill. Not quite ready to do that yet. We'll get to those when the time comes. Right now, what's coming up next is on the Deere mill. We're going to go ahead and get some paint put on some of these castings so that we can start kind of assembling things. Like I said, I got a little bit more stuff I got to do over here, but I got to get to the point where I'm ready to do it. On the Golden's mills over here, these are pretty much ready to go back together. I've got to round up all my hardware. I got to order some stuff, get it in. There's a few pieces of hardware that I have to actually make. So we'll be working on that probably coming up in a separate video as well. But for the Babbitt pouring, we're done for the day. So with that, guys, that'll be a wrap. As always, thanks for watching. Please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Those thumbs up and comments are always greatly appreciated. It really helps out with the algorithms on YouTube. Please, please, please subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that button up there to subscribe. Hit that bell icon to get notifications when new videos are posted. That also helps out a lot. Big, huge thank you to those who support the site financially through Patreon, PayPal, and through YouTube memberships, all which are great ways to support my channel, or for that matter, any other YouTube channel that you feel like you get value out of. If you feel like you're getting value out of it, consider making a little extra contribution there, because it really, really, really does make a difference. And guys, with that, we're going to get out of here. We'll catch you on the next video. Again, as always, thanks for watching.